Greetings and welcome to another episode of the Ad Astra Kansas Money Talk podcast. I'm your host, Joe Bluebon. I'm joined, as always, with Bob Schwartz and Mark Johnson of Bob Schwartz Financial. And, of course, you can find more information about them at bobschwartzfinancial.com. Offices in Victoria, Kansas, as well as in Silver Lake, Kansas. And with this podcast, we talk about all things money. We like to, from time to time, to focus on Kansas-specific topics, which is exactly what we're going to do today with this podcast. It's just a few days into January, into the new year of 2025, and one of the big legislative agenda items that has happened over the last couple of years, the last implementation of that has happened, and that's the reduction and the elimination of the food tax in Kansas. And we want to talk a little bit about that and some of the second and third order effects of that. So, Mark, why don't you start us off and talk a little bit about how this all came into being and kind of where we're at.
Yeah, so in 2022, we found out that this was going to start happening, where we were going to have our food tax eventually cut. So it has, since 2022, 2023, our percentages dropped from 6.5% to, I believe it's dropped about 2% each year or around there, to now at January 1st, no tax on food in Kansas when you shop at the grocery store.
So what did we all think when that came out? What did we all think?
That it would mean all food.
Yeah, taking my
everything.
cart into the grocery store and getting the Tide that I was told to get and getting the paper towels. I'm going to walk out and not pay any tax. Am I the only one in the state that thought that?
Probably not, but that also would not be correct.
And then if I stop by McDonald's on the way home and get me a Big Mac, I'm not going to pay tax on it, right?
Right. Well, that is food, but there are some caveats with the elimination of the food tax.
Okay.
Yeah. So only your food that's not prepared at the grocery store is going to be able to take advantage of that. No tax. So yeah.
Any food in a restaurant still going to have the 6.5% state sales tax on it.
Yeah. And same thing if you're in your Dillon's or wherever and you're getting your fried chicken, your Chinese, or even rotisserie chicken, anything that's prepared food is still subject to the tax.
6.5% for the state. And going to your Tide and your paper towels, those are not food items. Even though they're sold at a grocery store, you're going to pay the 6.5% state sales tax still.
But the first night it was on the news, I'm like, wow, I'm going to go to Walmart, no tax. I'm an idiot sometimes.
That being said, yes, it's not 100% across the board, but it is still significant.
Yeah.
This is a significant savings. And this is something that has been incrementally implemented since 2022. As Mark said, it's been coming down, and as of January 1st, it's zero. What's the impact on a family for an average Kansan?
Yeah, so we were talking about this before, but Governor Kelly, first of all, said that this is going to save Kansans $156 million in 2025, which is pretty amazing that we're getting, that's money going into Kansans' pockets. The average family of four is going to save about $500 a year from their grocery bill. That's pretty awesome when we're fighting a high inflation environment and we're getting a $500 savings, from the government, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, and one of the, things that we want to talk about is what can you do with that savings and how can that become something that has a little even more impact on a family. So lifestyle creep is a thing. We
Sure.
If people get $500 in savings for an average family in Kansas, but then they, automatically spend it on something that is not needed, maybe it doesn't have that great of an impact.
Otherwise, are we just putting that $500 back into the economy as opposed to putting it to work for ourselves? So,
Correct.
yeah, I think Mark and I would say the first thing that we'd recommend is if they work somewhere that has a retirement plan, that they go increase their contribution by about $40 a month, because it's going to be a net break even from the year before. But first, to address Kansans that don't have enough money to save, this is fantastic, because that percentage-wise, that's a bigger savings than it is for me or for you guys. For any of us that, that are getting by and doing okay, we're going to get a tax break, and that's fantastic. But more importantly, Kansans that are maybe living under the poverty level are going to have the opportunity to save quite a bit of money, and the more they will prepare food at home, the better that savings is going to be.
Yeah.
Well, and that's one of the things about sales tax is it is one of those taxes that is proportionally harder on families that are lower income, because if we go buy a car and we have to pay sales tax, I have a choice whether I want to spend $5,000 on a car or $50,000 on a car, and I'm going to pay that sales tax accordingly. We don't have a choice to not eat. Everybody has to buy groceries. So this is one of those, I'm very excited about the elimination of this tax, because it really can have a positive impact, because everybody has to buy food, whether you make a lot of money or, just as you mentioned, you're below the poverty line.
And your point about vehicles is perfect, because if somebody wants to buy a $100,000 vehicle, they can do that. They're going to pay tax on it, but they can also go buy something that's less expensive. It's their choice. And with our food consumption, it's a regressive tax because there are people that don't have enough. And do I want to pay more taxes? No. But do I want people that don't have anything to have less? Well, no. I don't want to support them, but if good public policy can help them survive, I'm all for that.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we have been very lucky in the state of Kansas, maybe lucky or good policy, however you want to look at it, but there has actually been some pretty significant budget surpluses in the state over the last several years that the state is actually kind of setting on right now. So I'm glad to see that, when you talk about $156 million, that means $156 million less in taxes coming into the state of Kansas. Yep. But
don't we have $2 billion?
Something
right
like that.
Now?
It is a significant amount of money in surplus.
And one of the things I've always noticed in my lifetime living in Kansas is when we have a Democratic governor and a Republican representatives, they get stuff done. It's pretty amazing. Now, a lot of times when it's all Republican, we don't get anything done. But for some reason, when we have Democratic governors, not saying they're better or anything like that, but I think we'd all agree that Governor Kelly is governed from the middle. She has not been far left at all. She's governed from the middle, and down the middle is where most of us are.
Correct.
In terms of fiscal, how we feel, and I'm hoping when you made the comment about the $2 billion, I would like to see some property tax relief.
And that is something that the legislature has brought up the last couple of sessions, and session is just getting ready to start up again. We, if you're not from Kansas, we have a part-time legislature that runs from January to approximately April-May timeframe, and they're just getting ready to come back into session. And I know that is one of the big initiatives this year, again, is property tax relief, but that's been their initiative the last couple of years, and it hasn't passed.
What I like is every year in Kansas, your county sends out an assessment of what your property's worth, and all of us got ours last year. And the House or the Senate, whatever, they passed something that said you couldn't increase that, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking our taxes aren't going to go up much, and then we all got our tax statement. They raised the mill levy. So it's they can get us either way.
Yeah.
So, property went up, 12% last year, real estate values in Silver Lake?
Yeah, something like that.
And my appraised value in the county was basically the same as it was the year before because of that, passing that law. But my property taxes went up more than 12%, and so did everybody sitting in this room.
Yeah, we probably do need to do a show at some point on property taxes, and we definitely could do a whole episode on that, because it is definitely one of those taxes that brings a lot of emotions from people. But back to the food tax, one thing that we didn't talk about is depending on where you live in the state of Kansas, you might still see some taxes on your food, sales tax on your food, because the state eliminated their sales tax on food, that 6.5% that it's been slowly reducing over the last couple of years. It's now 0. But in Shawnee County, where we're at right now, we have both a county sales tax, and then some of the cities within the county also have a sales tax, and those have not been eliminated. So you might still see, once again, depending on where you're at, sales tax on your food.
I think Topeka's 2.85 between Shawnee County and Topeka. And so the whole time I grew up, which again, I realized 1,000 years ago, and I realized it's totally different, but it was always 3%. I remember when it went to 4%, everybody's like, wow. They creeped it on us. And then most of us that don't pay any attention to public, or don't pay enough attention to public policy, we don't see that creep of the county and the city hitting us with stuff too. And
I think it's hard when you're buying necessities, because you're paying that bill regardless, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, that's a little bit more than usual, and then you click that checkout button and I'm like, wow, that's a lot more. And you don't really, for me sometimes it's like you don't even look at the tax at the bottom. You just assume inflation and everything's cost so much more. But man, when you're paying $15-$20 in tax and a grocery bill, I mean,
and those county commissioners, throw them under the bus. I don't hear any of our county commissioners going, hey, we need to get rid of the consumption tax on food, on non-prepared food or whatever, however that's decided. We need to get that out of there for people, because what happens to county revenue if they do away with that tax? Well, our property taxes are going up, and we're all crawling up them, yelling about that. So that kind of comes down to the bottom line of what services are going to be removed. Snow removal?
So yeah, there's definitely a balancing act there when it comes to property taxes versus sales tax versus any other type of tax and the services that are provided, for sure. One thing that I think is important in all of this is, where does this fit in with inflation? We continue to see inflation creep a little bit. We obviously have come down off of the highest of our inflation that we had a couple of years ago, but we still see the impact of that. Can this be something that can really help offset some of that inflation?
Yeah, this is in my opinion, this is an easy win for Kansans, and the fact that if we're saving $500 a year on your necessities, things that people are going to continue buying, like inflation, regardless, people are going to keep buying their food. They're going to keep buying.
Have to eat.
Yeah, you have to eat. Yeah. So this is just a win. Anytime you can save money on your necessities, it's going to help fight that that inflationary. Even if prices are going up everywhere, it's nice to save on something. And so $500 still in our pocket can help us fight, those other things that are going to cost more.
And did you have something?
Well, I was just going to say, let's talk about the 800-pound gorilla sitting in the corner on losing that tax, that regressive tax. How much food products are raising their rates 6.5%, and that concerns me, because that can of beans, instead of being 89 cents is now 95 cents. We've all seen oil companies be predatory, right? We've all seen gas prices be predatory in our lifetime. You don't have to be very old to have seen that. And how much is retail that way? Groceries? I don't know, but that would be a fear that I would have, and I think you were going to address that.
And as we talk about the inflation and the pressures that have been put on families, whether it comes to food or just anything in the consumers are paying, we've started to see retailers kind of shift their promotions, I guess, or kind of they're also seeing that families are struggling and they want to protect their bottom line. So you're starting to see some kind of the value wars is kind of how you've termed it within retailers on both the food side and just in the retail industry. So maybe talk a little bit about what value wars are and the impact it's having on Kansas families.
Yeah, so a big topic right now, and that I keep seeing is this idea of these value wars, these different chains fighting for the consumer's business in this inflationary environment. So, for example, you're going to see more and more big box retailers, more and more fast food chains, offering these promotional, loyalty programs, apps, deals. Fast food chains are going to be offering these value meals or these value items. McDonald's just said this week they're bringing their value menu back. There's a huge fight over the budget conscious spender, and we're seeing that right now. Everyone's understanding that they have to do something to get people in their doors. These, not just, your big Walmarts, your Krogers, whatever, it's everyone. They're fighting and they're trying to find ways to get you there.
Yeah, so many years ago, I think it was McDonald's, it might have been several fast food places, they had the value menu, where you could go in and, get things for $1. And then the one that I always remember was Wendy's had the 4 for $4. And that was a huge, that brought a lot of people in the door there. I think it was hugely successful. When we got into COVID and we saw that inflation jump and food prices, just spike, a lot of those value menus went away. Mm-hmm. And so with the value wars, that's one of the areas that you're seeing it come back, is what I understand. Yeah,
they're realizing that they have to do something, to get people through the door. There's going to be people that get everything off the value menu, and there's going to be someone that gets one thing from the value menu, and they're still going to buy that full priced item. They're still, they understand, obviously, I understand their business. Yeah. They get it, but there is a chance for savings for the consumer, which is important.
Right.
Yeah.
What percentage of places that you guys shop ask you for your phone number when you're checking out?
Everyone.
If you're a member of their...
Yeah, everyone.
Yeah, everybody wants you to get enrolled in their loyalty program, right, because obviously they've seen that by being in the loyalty program, it drives repeat business.
Yep.
And we're all examples of that. We have our, the frequent flyer miles that we collect have been around for, decades at this point. Loyalty programs with hotels, trying to get that consumer to be, instead of going and shopping for the best deal, well, I'll get points for future stays, so I'm going to stay at a Hilton or a Marriott, depending on which ward you're in.
The good ones can also tell you when what you just bought 4 months ago is back on sale, or something else that you might like. It gives them so much ability to get on our phones.
Absolutely.
And that's very important for them as retailers.
Yeah, they're going to market to you.
This fight, and one of the things I think we don't talk about enough in Mark's and my business, but then overall, is the effect that Amazon's had on value.
Yep.
And that's one thing that's probably going to stop predatory pricing in the future. Is there is a point where I go to Amazon. I mean, I don't know about you guys,
yep,
but there's a price point where I got to go check this.
Absolutely.
And make sure I can't buy this a lot cheaper.
And now Walmart's gotten to that game, and now we have two huge, as you want to say, huge gorillas in the room with you that are fighting for business that can that can probably make it cost less than about anywhere else.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's definitely an opportunity for consumers to see some benefit from these value wars.
Definitely. I mean, the more competition that the more competition there is, hopefully the price drives down. That's, what should happen, hopefully.
I'm going off topic here for a second, but the one thing, when I've been to Asia and been to Europe, one huge difference, I mean, to me, everything was just kind of the same. Everybody kind of talked different, looked different maybe, but the one huge difference I noticed was the small retailer. The Bob Schwartz selling T-shirts out of a 10-foot wide opening, and just row after row of that. We're seeing that over here now. Like I go to Christmas at the mall, that there was a whole I don't know if it was I don't know what the former resident was in there, but there was a whole group of people selling, the ice cream company from Wabunsee County, people selling their individual items. And the other thing about this competitive nature that Amazon and Walmart are bringing aboard is the small entrepreneur probably has the best opportunities I've seen in my adult life of building a niche business and being profitable at it with big competition. And I think that's pretty neat.
It is.
Yeah.
Talking about value there, that's bringing value to, people that have a motor that want to build something.
Well, if you think about that, you just talked about the mall and having that physical location, and that's always been a barrier for an entrepreneur because it's expensive and it's limited, the space that you could find. Now with online, the sky's the limit.
You can be in your basement.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs are exactly that. That's exactly how they start out.
Do it out of the basement, but then when an opportunity, like I'm sure, there were 50 different sellers in there when I walked in. They weren't paying very much for that. Yeah, that's something that the mall did probably to bring people in. But like my wife said, gosh, if we'd have been here, if I'd have realized this was here 3 weeks ago, we could have gotten, a lot of our Christmas shopping done right there. And we know when we hand that $20 bill, that's staying.
Yep.
That's local.
Staying local,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
One thing I was thinking about during this, but what two big businesses do you think have really, boomed because of this value war? We have one in Topeka, and then there's one in Kansas City. What do you
Would
think?
that be Costco?
Costco and Sam's
And
Club.
Sam's,
Yeah, those two are. When I think of top of my head, I'm like, where are people shopping right now? They're shopping at places where they're getting a whole, these bigger discounts. Those businesses, though, we talk about value wars. Where are they getting their money? They're getting their money from your membership.
Yeah,
from you eating the pizza on the way out or the hot
Hot
dog.
dog.
Whatever. They're not making huge margins, but they're providing that value for the customer based off the loyalty program.
It's the $100 theory I've always had at Walmart. You go in, you need something and you go into Walmart and get it, and it's a $20 item, and you spend $100 getting out past the cash register. Costco, Sam's is.
To say,
Is that-
I'm happy if I make it out of there
Yeah.
with less than $500.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Well, you go into Sam's, I need 6 of those and 3 of those.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's on sale, and
For the value or the budget conscious Kansan out there, that's obviously the membership part of it can be a little pricey to start with, but the savings you can get is pretty measurable. The problem is you just have to make sure that you're buying everything there in bulk.
Yeah.
You've got to make sure that that doesn't go to waste.
How many? Here's one thing I notice interesting when I'm at the big stores today is people that dress conservative, that you can tell that they're very conservative. And when you never used to see them. They shop at the big stores now. Why? Because it's cheaper. And I see that in Hayes, I see that in Wichita, I see it in Topeka, and I think that's fantastic. But those people are driving miles to get to the store that those folks are. They're no different than us. It's just you can identify. I can't identify when somebody's from Silver Lake or Topeka, generally. But down around Garnett, where there's some Mennonite communities or Amish communities, they dress a little different, and so and I see so many more in different areas than I used to see.
So they're traveling to find those savings now that they probably wouldn't have done before.
Right, and I sit and think, gosh, they're not spending money locally, but you know what they're doing? They're going home and cooking, and they're selling what they make locally or back into, which is fantastic, and it just always makes me think of if I'm setting out in Lewis, Kansas, and I want to shop at Walmart, I can. I don't have to drive to Walmart. I can shop online. Mm-hmm. And I imagine Costco does the same.
They do.
But and Amazon, of course, it's a great equalizer. It's killed a lot of grocery stores in small towns.
Yeah.
Like yesterday, I'm in St. John's, Kansas. 600 people, grocery store. They still have a grocery store. Kind of depends on how far out you are. Little town I grew up in still has a grocery store, but there's a Walmart 24 miles away. So we know what happened to the grocery store here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the big thing I would say with this is, the value wars and, obviously taking advantage of the programs like, we've talked about, take advantage of what these businesses are trying to give, do research, figure out what are the best deals that you can get to save money. With the fast food in those places, make sure hey, look at the apps, look at those things, find the value, but always understand that, especially with we talk about the food tax being hacked, it's going to be cheap, it's going to be,
savings, yes.
there's savings to be had cooking at home, and so not saying everyone has to do that, but understand their marketing is going to be hey, it's so cheap, it's so cheap, it's so cheap, and it is cheaper. It's going to be, hopefully, if you can make it cheaper, but usually that's still, those savings can be had if you take advantage of this sales tax reduction and cook at home.
Absolutely. I want to wrap this episode up. Just the main takeaway here is there's the potential for some value there. There's obviously savings with the sales tax, and what do you do with it? And whether it's pay off debt,
Yep.
it's invest. Obviously, if you're a little behind, get caught up. There's lots of ways to do it, but I think the thing we can all universally say is try to avoid spending that on things you don't.
Be cognizant of the savings.
Yeah.
Be cognizant of the fact that you have been $500 has been, if you're a family of 5 and you're barely making it, be cognizant of the fact that you've added $500 plus into your budget and use it wisely. If that's a coat, if that's paying your heating bill, but use it wisely. And it's not our job to tell you how to spend your money, but we all know that it's easy to just let it blend into our budget and go, we're still broke.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, thanks for another great episode. If you like this episode, please give us a thumbs up on YouTube, subscribe, and obviously give us a review if you're listening to this through one of the podcast services. And Mark, Bob, thank you. Happy New Year once again to you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
And until next time, thanks for joining us.